Members, it's 6 o'clock. Welcome to tonight's exciting full council meeting. So we're going to kick off. I'm not sure if we're awaiting anybody else. Could we have apologies for absence, please?
Thank you, Chair. We've had apologies from Councillors Archer, Franks, Lees, Nash, O'Brien, Peacock, Ripton and Whitehead.
Thank you. So if we move on to item 2 on the agenda then, which is to receive the non-exempt record of the proceedings of the council meeting from the 23rd of January. So members are asked to approve their accuracy. Could we have a proposer and a seconder for that, please? Okay. Proposer, Councillor Burton. Councillor Gretorick, second. Thank you. All those in favour? Sorry. We have a query.
May I say something,
yes,
please,
Councillor
Chair?
Hobson.
As you can see, that both parts of this meeting are to be approved separately. I didn't agree with how the meeting was run originally, and I certainly don't agree with how the meeting is going to be run towards the end, where these minutes are going to be voted on, being voted in closed session yet again. I'd like to note that. Thank you.
Thank you. So we move to the vote then. So we have another interjection. Councillor G.
Yeah, because that particular meeting, in regards to the final item, I wasn't in attendance and I've never seen the minutes until today.
Neither of the rest of us. Yeah.
Yeah, but
You were at the meeting.
Yeah, but I wasn't at the meeting and I haven't been brought into the situation, so it's just difficult. That's the point I wanted to make.
Point noted. Thank you. If we can move to the vote then, please. All those in favour? Okay. Thank you. Any against? Don't believe so. And any abstentions? We have one abstention, I believe. Thank you. Okay. In which case we move to, thank you. That's carried. We move to item 3, which is the approval of the minutes from the previous meeting, which is the 30th of January. So members are asked to approve the accuracy of that. Again, could I have a proposer, please? Councillor Wilson. And a seconder. Councillor Dobbs. Thank you. Can I ask all members to vote on that, please? All those in favour, please raise. Any against? No. And any abstentions? Again, one. Thank you very much. That is also carried. Now, although it says public participation on your agenda, there are no public present. Can I therefore move to item 5, which is to ask members to declare any interests that they may have in subsequent agenda items? Councillor Hobson.
I think Ms Beardwell has sent us some information about what we should be disclosing at this meeting. She was going to do an exemption for us. Thank you.
Yeah, that's correct, Councillor Hobson. All members have a dispensation on items 8 and 9. The Chair was going to refer to that once the dispensation was got to that item, there to vote, participate and vote on the council tax. Yes, you're right.
Councillor Flitter.
Yeah, Chair. I understand the dispensation rules and what's been granted to the council members this evening, but on item 9 I am going to declare an interest, and I shall leave the meeting at that point. Particularly because when it came through to G&O, I did exactly the same. So through transparency, I will leave the room while you're discussing that item.
If there's nobody else, can we then please move to item 6, which is the medium-term financial strategy? Karen.
Thank you, Chair. So this report seeks Council's approval for the medium-term financial strategy that covers financial years 2025-26 to 2029-30. The strategy is intended to set out the Council's strategic approach to the management of its finances, and it should provide a framework within which decisions can be made regarding future service provision and future council tax levels. There is some duplication in this report and the revenue budget report later on the agenda. Usually I would prefer to bring this report to members in the autumn, but given that we knew that the finance settlement from the government in December was likely to bring about changes to our financial position, I delayed the MTFS report until we'd had time to assess those. And as members will be aware, the local government finance settlement did include a consultation paper on proposals for local authority funding reforms, which, as expected, has made a significant impact on the MTFS. So that meant the local government funding reforms meant that from 26-27 the council is likely to face further reductions in its grant funding, and that comes on top of significant grant funding cuts and savings that we've had to make in earlier financial years. If members look at the chart in the MTFS on page 46 of the agenda pack, you can see that shows quite starkly the funding cuts that we've received in the past. And that shows how difficult it's going to be to achieve further significant savings of the magnitude that's indicated. Local government reorganisation will also undoubtedly have an impact on our medium-term financial plan and strategy, but that's not been reflected in this report or in the strategy so far, as we're not able to predict those changes without any degree of certainty at the moment. Paragraph 2.2 of the report sets out the uncertainties that currently exist around the council's finances, that make it difficult for us to project the future financial position. One thing that we can be sure of is that the MTFP will turn out to be inaccurate, because something's bound to change. They are just forecasts to provide members with a direction of travel rather than very accurate financial plans. So the proposed medium-term financial strategy is shown at Appendix 1 to the report. It's been updated to reflect the expected outcome of the proposed funding reforms, and it's summarised in Table 1 of the report on page 51 of the agenda pack. The MTFP shows that significant savings will be required in order to balance budgets. £1.3 million in 26-27, 2.1 million in 27-28 and 3.2 million in 2028-29. That's if the funding reforms have the impact that we're currently expecting. The MTFS sets out a proposed strategy to deal with those underspends, and that's reflected in the report's recommendations. The key thing I'm asking members to approve is the approach to meeting the future savings that will be required, and that's set out in the MTFS and in paragraph 2.8 of the report. There are risks with that approach, and they're set out in part 5 of the MTFS. This explains that the risks will be mitigated, and in a worst case scenario, if we can't balance the budget, we'll need to draw down on reserves. The MTFS also includes a section on those reserves and balances, so members can see how much we have in reserves at the moment and what's uncommitted. The individual reserves are described and the balances reviewed for adequacy in section 3.2 and in appendices B and C on page 38 and 39 of the agenda pack. I ask members to approve the report recommendations.
Thank you, Karen. So questions. Councillor Hughes, I think you were first off the block.
Thank you, Chair. I don't seem to have the same version of the report that Karen is talking about. The pages that I've got don't reference the pages that she's referenced, so the tables aren't there. And on the one on the web, on the civic, what is it called, the Modern Gov thing, is I don't even have the report on the Modern Gov. So I'm at a loss to know what has happened, but I don't appear to have the correct set of papers.
Okay, it's a serious issue. Can we resolve this?
So the appendix to the report was issued late, and a revised agenda pack was put on the website. I don't know.
Okay, so I should be.
I don't know if you can refresh your ModGov access in
I
some
don't know
way.
how to do that. ModGov is a bit of a dark art to me.
Excuse me, Chair. I'm having the same problem.
Same problem.
The main
Okay.
agenda on ModGov. I'll get it. That's what I'm going through. And
All right.
I think we all are. I think we get on it.
Councillor Wayne.
I'll switch that off and speak. I phoned up this morning about that because I'm going through exactly the same. We're all being encouraged to use Modern Love, and there's no trace of any of these, no report on there for us to go on. So we've had to go, so I like to annotate it and fill in little bubbles with questions and things like that, but it wasn't there. I raised it this morning, I spoke to computers. Computers didn't really know what Modern Gov, they just put the app on, and Democratic Services weren't sure about it either. So at the end of the day, it needs something sorting out for the next meeting. Thank you.
Okay, do we have a workaround solution?
Chair, perhaps if I could make a suggestion. Clearly, if members haven't received this particular paper, it's unreasonable to expect Council to make a decision on this paper. So if that is the scenario, then we would actually suggest that this paper is deferred, and we'll bring it back to the next meeting of Council when all members can be provided with a copy.
Councillor Wayne again.
Just for your info, I have read it, and Councillor Sack, I can't. Yeah. I have read it, but it isn't on the Modern Gov. I've read it. I don't know how many people have read it or not, but I have seen the report on the Derbyshire County Council, Derbyshire Dales District Council website. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So I understand there are some issues there, but do we have questions? A number of other members have raised their hands in relation to questions not relating to that point. Councillor Murphy, I think you were first.
Thanks, Chair. I'm just looking at... Thanks, Chair. My question was about recommendation 5 and paying sort of surplus funds into housing reserve. With what's coming down the track potentially with deficits and whatever, are we able to claw back any of that money that we put into that fund to help us create a balanced budget in future years if we need to?
Yes, members have the power, subject to all your collective approval, to take funds from a reserve and use it to balance the budget or to move funds between reserves.
I was just wondering, is it being ring-fenced or no?
No, I mean it's put into reserves for specific purposes so we can plan our expenditure, but members always have the power to collectively to overrule that.
Okay. Councillor Bull, I think you had your hand raised.
Yeah, one of my questions was to the fact of not having the agenda on ModGov to fully go through the report as it's been done over again, and everything else. But my question's just been asked as regards the reserves going in, as long as they can be took back if needs be. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Councillor Flitter.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was just wondering on the state of the savings that this council will have to make over the next 3 years. And what with we're going into local government review, are they going to hold us because 1.3 to 2 point something and then to over 3 million is escalating out of control. Now, knowing the future of what may happen to the authority, are we going to be pushed into this savings, or do you think there'll be any room for movement? Because, you know, if we want to get something done with this council, we need every penny we can get.
The government released the paper on local government reorganisation, devolution, shortly after the local government finance settlement, but they don't seem to have, at this stage, brought the two together. It would make sense to do that at some point, but they've not done that yet. I can say from a meeting I attended online where the Minister was present, he made it clear that he's expecting local authorities to use their reserves. So we've got quite healthy reserves at the moment compared to a lot. But on the other hand, we've got SITFA, our professional accountancy body, telling us we need adequate reserves to provide for financial resilience. So it is a bit of a balancing act, and we don't have the level of detail we'd like at the moment.
Councillor Hobson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Karen, for the report, and also thank you for giving the individual briefings to all the groups. It was very interesting. Following on from what Councillor Flitter said, you know, you look at these budget forecast gaps each year, and it really is pretty frightening. You can only spend your reserves once, and I do have concerns about the resilience of this authority going forward for however long it lasts. Sorry, that was probably a comment, not a question. Sorry. Thank you.
Or should I say, do you have concerns about the resilience, Karen? You know, things like putting money for bin lorries and stuff like that, stuff we have to do.
Yeah, I do. And I mean, at the moment they've only consulted on those proposals that we have reflected as a sort of worst case scenario. We're waiting to see the precise outcome on that. I'm hoping that they might roll back, but I'm not holding my breath, because the government have made it clear that they want funding to go to areas that they feel are deprived, so mainly city areas, and they've already abolished rural services delivery grant. So yes, I do have concerns.
Okay. Councillor Burton.
Can we just have a bit of clarification, because I feel as a member of the council utterly submerged to some extent in, Karen, from what you were saying, if I got it right, you were talking about 28 to 29 drawing down of reserves. Now, what is actually wrong with that? If we're going out of business, in effect, why do we need these reserves? Why aren't we going out with a bang and we can actually say, well, in our last years we achieved this, we achieved that? I'm very much, I have to say, with Councillor G on this whole arena. I mean, with respect to Paul, we recently allocated £50,000 to all this, and that is probably money that will be properly and wisely spent with the issue. But it's not an issue of our making, is it? And I'm just concerned that if it is achieved, we don't then hand over monies that ought to have been spent directly, you know, in our own communities.
I'm not sure that's a question as such, but yeah, okay.
No, but in a way, we never actually talk, do we? It's all, you know, we're all...
Okay. But you're not seeking an answer, are you?
That's the question.
I'm really conveying, as a member of the council, my bewilderment and unease as this progresses, where we're going to end up.
All right. Thank you. Councillor Buttle.
Thank you, Roger. Now, the CIPFA's what? The Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy. Would it be possible to ask them for a recommendation for how we should approach local government and reorganisation?
I'm sure they will be issuing some advice in due course. They're already starting to set up groups to look at it, but that we're very, you know, we're at the very start of the process at the moment, so I think everybody's waiting for more guidance. I mean, there have been some authorities that have already been through it. So one of the things we'll be doing is approaching those authorities to see, what they did.
Thank you. And one of the other things that I think SIPFA may be looking at, I'm hoping they're looking at, or the auditors, do we actually know if there's any proof whatsoever that this change of local government, the reorganisation, is going to save money, or are they just saying it's going to save money?
I've not seen anything on that, particularly for Derbyshire at the moment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wilton.
I was just going to propose it, if I could, please.
Of course, yes, okay. And do we have a seconder? Councillor Dobbs. Thank you. In which case we are now moving into debate. Councillor Wilson, would you like to speak on this?
Yeah, I was going to say thank you very much, Karen, for the excellent work on this. Obviously, you've seen it in GNR, and just to confirm as well, I wanted to confirm all 5 recommendations as well for the vote as well, please. That's right. But thank you very much, Karen. And I know it's been difficult, and I know we're still waiting for the multiple-year hopeful plan to come from government, and I think that will help us set out how we're going to look going forward. But I do think we do need to think a little bit. We do need to leave something left in the cupboard. I know everyone wants to go out with a bang for whatever authority comes next, and we're not taking everything, the future, away from the people of Derbyshire as well, because we need to keep something for that as well.
Yeah. Councillor Dobbs, do you want to speak or speak later?
Just very briefly, I hope there won't be too much later. Just to say that I think with the number of known unknowns, Karen has actually tiptoed through this very effectively. It's so difficult to predict so many things. I'd like to thank Karen for that. And I think this is an excellent compromise, which actually puts aside money if we can find the opportunity to use it, but has it available if we don't, and prepares for the worst and hopes for the best. And I do commend it to all members. Thank you.
Okay, so as I say, we are now in debate. Councillor G.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. Where do I start with this? Yeah, I should start by thanking Karen, because, she's done an exceptional job with this. And, I'm amazed at how well she does, really. So really thank you, Karen, for doing the best that you can with this situation. I was really proud to be elected as a member of this council, and I really value Derbyshire Dales District Council. And, this is a medium-term plan that goes up to 29-30. I'd be a happy chappy if we go to that level, to 2030. Could that happen? Because I think it should. I think we should stick up for this council, because, as has been mentioned, there's no way. I mean, this LGR organisation, this local government reorganisation that's being proposed, and it's a total fiasco. There's no proper system that's going to save money. This council is run properly. You talk about saving money with collecting bins. You've got to have a lorry, you've got to have a driver, it's got to go to a house, and it's got to go every week, every fortnight, every month, or what they're suggesting. It doesn't make any difference if you turn it into a council for Derbyshire, 2 councils for Derbyshire. You've still got to have Derbyshire Dales District Council gives us what we want, which is local representation. People can come to us. This is what we want. We don't want to be reorganised. We want to be kept. We want to last. And, it's been mentioned, Councillor Burton spoke eloquently on that, going out of business. I don't want this council to go out of business. So I hope this medium-term plan lasts until 2030, and I hope this council's here. And we should stick up for ourselves. Because once again, I'll say, there's people who've been hatching a plan to get rid of this council, and we should keep it, because it works well for Derbyshire Dales.
Would anybody else like to contribute? Councillor Wayne.
Well said. Very well said. Because at the end of the day, our council has an identity. Our district has an identity that's specific to the Derbyshire Dales, obviously. And
whilst I don't want us to go hell for leather at spending everything and then find we've got nothing, I do consider it very, very important that we don't affect our output to our community. And if we can give them a little bit more, I don't want to see our, carefully managed by Karen council pass on all that money to other councils that have been reckless with the way they have spent their money. I don't think that is fair. So I would be wanting the council to act carefully, but we don't want to be giving millions away at the end of the day. And I feel that Derbyshire, we owe it to the residents of Derbyshire Dales to look after them, and I don't want to see this council go because I fear greatly. There isn't a one size fits all. You can't say, we're going to chuck everything into the cities and the more socially deprived areas, because there are socially deprived areas here within our council, and I think we really need to really lobby the government to wake up and smell the coffee. Thank you.
Councillor Hobson.
Thank you, Chair. I think the government have woken up and smelled the coffee, and they've told us what they're going to do, and it's going to happen whether we want it or not. And I think it's a real shame that local accountability, I don't know how it's going to work out, but this is what the Labour government said they were going to bring in, and this is what will happen. They probably decided already, for all I know.
Okay. Not sure there's any other contributions. I'm sure this is a topic which we will come back to. I was going to say endlessly, certainly for the duration of this authority as we're elected to it anyway. But it sounds like we're just in the warm-up session at the moment. Okay. So in which case, we've had a proposer, we've had a seconder. Can we please move to the vote? Yes, we've got 5 recommendations which it's been proposed we're moving en bloc together. So can we have all those showing in favour, please raise your hand. And all those against? And any abstentions? 1 abstention. Thank you very much. That's carried. So we will now move to item 7, which is the capital programme update. It's pages 35 on your agenda. And Karen, that's back over to you again, please.
Thank you, Chair. So as members will know, the capital programme is the Council's plan of future spending on capital projects such as buying or enhancing land, vehicles and equipment, or on grants for those purposes. So the first part of this report looks at the current financial position of spend in the current financial year against the capital programme. And details are provided in Appendix A and in Part 2 of the report. We've provided paper copies of Appendix A this time to help make it easier for members to read them, because I know some of you struggled at the last meeting. The capital programme for 24-25 is reduced from £11.2 million to £10 million. And we're proposing to carry forward £1.4 million into 25-26 as slippage. There are some overspends which are summarised in paragraph 2.6 of the report, and other changes are set out in the report and summarised in table 2. The rest of the report looks at the updated capital programme for 2025-26 to 2029-30 and its associated financing. There are 2 new bids that are described in paragraph 2.8 to 2.12. One's for warm homes and the other one is for UK SPF funded projects. Both of these new bids are grant funded and they total £2.64 million. Members are asked to approve these 2 new bids for inclusion in the capital programme without prior approval by a policy committee due to their urgent nature and the need to accept grant conditions. The revised capital programme for 2025-26 to 29-30 is shown in Appendix A, from 24.5 to 29.30, shown in Appendix A. It totals just under £37.4 million, which is £4.2 million more than the programme that members approved in January. The key changes are set out in Table 4 of the report. Table 5 of the report shows the proposed financing for the revised programme. The vast majority is from grants and contributions, with the rest coming from capital receipts and reserves. There is no new borrowing. Without these grants that are significant in some cases, schemes such as Ashbourne Reborn, the Warm Homes Scheme for climate change and so on, would have not been affordable without the grants and contributions. Appendix B shows the impact of the proposed financing on the Council's reserves, and paragraph 7.2 explains that grants and contributions and other amounts are set aside in strategic reserves for specific purposes, such as vehicle replacements. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. My apologies, it's page 77 where this report starts. So do we have any questions to Karen? Councillor Burton.
Karen, can you just explain the 30,000 for the Whitworth Trust? Is that for the park, or is that a specific grant system in their fabric issues?
It's towards the maintenance of the park.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Buckler.
Yeah, the UK Shared Prosperity funding. Has the grant application has gone in for that? Because it says that it's come to council and not having gone through. So has a detailed grant been applied for? And is it delivering the priorities within the corporate plan? Do you know?
The details of that grant are given in the appendix to the report. Oh no, they're not. Sorry, that's the Warm Homes one, sorry. It's in paragraph 2.10 of the report. So as far as I know, the grant application has gone in, and because it has to be spent by 31st of March 2026, that's why we need to get it into the capital programme at this meeting so that spending can commence as soon as possible. I don't know, sorry, whether it meets the corporate priorities. I don't have that level of knowledge of that project, but with it,
yeah, I'm happy to pick that point up, Chair. The issue with the application was that we wasn't sure whether the UK Shared Prosperity monies would come direct to the District Council or whether it would go to EMCA. It is due to go to EMCA, but the EMCA board has agreed that it will actually be ported back to District Councils to spend against our priorities. So the intention would be to continue to deliver schemes which meet our corporate plan objectives for the financial year 25-26.
Thanks, that's very helpful.
Okay, brilliant. Any other questions? Councillor Hobson first.
Thank you, Chair. When we were at C&E, there were quite a few questions about replacing the audio-visual equipment, and there were various points made. Then it came through again to be discussed at a previous council meeting, and people made other suggestions in relation to their IT equipment. Is it going through as said, Paul, because you said you wanted things to move at pace when we're at C&E, but is there going to be some dialogue about what actually would be the most cost-effective, useful way of it being spent for councillors, or is it set in stone, I think is the question.
Thank you, Chair. So at the council meeting in January, where members approved the capital financing for the AV equipment, there was certainly discussion regarding the nature of the scheme and the scale of the investment. There was no decision taken at that meeting to pursue a different course of action. So the current situation is that we are currently in a live procurement. Actually, the tender process for that ended last week. We're about to embark into the evaluation phase, and the intention would be to progress with the implementation of the scheme as originally proposed, which would effectively result in a contract start date from the 1st of April. So, in light of no alternative decision being taken, that is the current position.
Councillor Martin Burfoot.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Towards the bottom of the second sheet of the printout, number item 296, or project 296, do we assume the temporary travellers site, £40,000, that's Lapot Station car park improvements?
Sorry, Chair, I didn't catch the
towards the bottom
reference.
of page 2 for the printout. So it says it's project number 296, temporary travellers site, but it doesn't say any more than that. Do we assume that the £40,000 be spent the remaining of this financial year, I think? Well, it's a bit late for that, isn't it, really? But it's £40,000 anyway. I can't think of any other travellers site that's going to have expenditure of that scale, so do you assume that's for Lapot Station car park?
So that £40,000, that budget was inflated again when Council considered the capital programme in January, and that was to do capital works at primarily the Matlock station site. Yes.
Right, very good, thank you.
And Councillor Flitter.
Thank you, Chair. Just a bit of a query. I know it goes back years and years since Carsington had their reservoir built, and there was a grant there for at the top of the page for local residents and schemes within that area. However, I'm just wondering, is there an end date to this? Because obviously there's nothing been done for a number of years. There's nothing going to be done for a number of years. So what happens to that money that's in that pot at the moment? Have we got any views on that?
Happy to respond, Chair. Councillor Flitter is absolutely right. That fund has been with us for many, many years now, and primarily due to the interest that's been accrued on the original capital sum provided when the reservoir was constructed. We receive probably 2 applications a year. We do continue to receive applications and support them. And we've recently approved some disabled facilities for the Carsington Sailing Club, which has been financed by the Carsington Reservoir Fund. There is a requirement for us to consult with Severn Trent on every application that we get. We consult with the ward members, and subject to no objections being raised, they are determined under delegated authority. So in terms of the end date is when the money runs out, and I think we're getting pretty close to that clearly now with only £11,000 being left.
Can I just follow up on that, Chair, and just ask, how then is that managed? Because obviously non-ward members won't know those details.
That's absolutely true. There is no further reporting of the schemes that we provide beyond the ward members, but if members wanted information, we do have schedules of the schemes that have been supported in recent years.
Thank you.
Councillor Wayne.
I'm struggling to know what devolution retrofit is at 702. It sounds very important, but I haven't got a clue what it is.
It's a good question.
And a big value. Thank you.
I believe that it's some sort of decarbonisation, warm home types project. I don't know a great deal more than that.
And is that a initiative for devolution then, or? Yeah.
I think that's an open question, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Councillor Hughes.
Just one on the Bakewell Road development and the £1 million in the budget for next year. I assume that this is money that is still available for development of the site, and the decision will be made later on in the year.
Yes, that's absolutely right, Chair. The previous decision taken by Council was that this scheme would be revisited. I think it's due for July this year, and members can make a decision then as to how to proceed.
Councillor Buttle.
Thanks very much. I can sort of see that there's lots of stuff here which is fairly definite, and that's great. But there's some things which are a bit uncertain, which I know this council's kind of involved in, and I'm wondering how they sit into a capital programme. For example, spending on a traveller site that we haven't found yet, but we are going to have to find. So are there ways that we can draw down money, or the council staff or the officers can draw down money if we, for example, go to auction to buy something? Or does this revised capital programme hold money in it waiting for those opportunities to take place?
We don't usually put money into the capital programme until the specific project has gone through the policy committee and then come to council for approval. But if you look at Appendix B, what we do have are 2 reserves that could be used in the example that you've just given. So we've got a traveller reserve with £200,000 in, and we've got a new land acquisition reserve with £300,000 in. So they would provide a source of funding, but it would still be necessary to come to council to seek approval for a budget.
And obviously we would be very happy to buy a traveller site, because it would certainly put some issues to one side for us. How long does that kind of thing take? Because if we have a land agent out searching, and something comes up, do we call in an emergency council or what? How does that? Actually, I don't know how it works. It'd be interesting to know. I know maybe I should know how it works, but I don't.
I think this is a discussion for another meeting, Chair, because clearly Council has previously made decisions back in December last year around this whole issue. There will be a report coming to a future meeting of the Policy Committee to discuss this particular matter, and at that point Council can make decisions as to how they wish to move forward in terms of delegated authority. But that is an issue under live consideration at the moment.
Brilliant. So we've got 500,000 lurking, waiting for that to actually happen when it happens. Thank you.
Am I right, Paul, in thinking that's coming to the next C&E meeting? Yeah.
It is, Chair, yes.
Thank you. Thanks. Councillor G.
Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, when it comes to the capital programme, I'm particularly interested in Bakewell for obvious reasons. And I try and look at the word Bakewell. I notice this Bakewell Road Matlock, and there's Bakewell riverbank erosion, which is obviously something. But could I call out for more funding for Bakewell in my area, because we are in need of some capital programme money for things like, the council has made some effort to help with the recreation ground, the cricket pavilion, but it's some of the local on the town council are slightly unimpressed with the work, but I think it could do with a bit more. The tennis courts need resurfacing, something similar to the ones in Matlock, because I know people say people don't play tennis, but you wouldn't play tennis in Bakewell because you'd probably cause yourself an injury if you did that. And my parents used to play tennis up until before they died, very late in life, and they loved it in Bakewell, playing tennis there. So I'd like to see more people playing tennis on nice tennis courts in Bakewell. Also, there is some issue in Ashford about the Ashford in the Water, about the burial ground being basically too small, and they need to have an extension, so that could be added to it in future years. So
would I be right in thinking that if you have a shopping list, the best thing to do is to put it in an email to the relevant officers?
I'm putting it live in this meeting, so we all listen. Thank you.
And was there anyone else? Councillor Wilson.
Can I propose?
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Flitter. Thank you. In which case, do you want to speak on this, Councillor Wilson?
No, just another excellent report. Thank you, Karen. And thank you, Karen, for giving everyone a bit more clarity on some of the CapEx, because I think they wanted to see that and go through that. I know some members did, so hopefully this is giving that to them a little bit more. Thank you.
All right, well, we're into debate. Would anyone like to kick off on this? If there's nobody who wishes to speak, we could go straight to a vote. In which case, I don't see any dissent from that. Can we have all those in favour, please? There are, yes indeed, pointed out to me there are a number of recommendations which we're taking en bloc. So all those in favour? And any against? Any abstentions? No, no abstentions. I think that's no comment. Thank you very much. That is carried, and therefore we move to the next item, which is the revenue budget. That's item 8. I'm reliably informed, page 97 of your agendas. So on this one, I have to remind members that the monitoring officer is happy, following the delegated authority as Part 3 of the Constitution, to grant all members a dispensation under Section 33(2)(a) of the Act from the requirements of Section 31(4) of the Act, and that enables all members to participate and vote in this item. Karen.
Thank you, Chair. So this report covers the revenue spending proposals for 25-26. Revenue spending covers day-to-day activities such as salaries and wages, payments to contractors such as payments to Serco, the costs of software, supplies, services, and it's net of any income from fees and charges, specific government grants, council tax and business rates. So by law, the council must set a balanced budget by the 11th of March each year. That's what we're here to do tonight. I'll take you through the report briefly. Section 1 of the report explains that the process for preparing the revenue budget is linked to the corporate plan via service plans. So there is that thread running through. Section 2.1 of the report sets out the details of the local government finance settlement. Members had those by email earlier in the year, but I've put them in the report so that we can refer to them. The national context of the settlement is set out in paragraph 2.1.2, and the local context is set out in paragraph 2.1.3. As the report indicates at paragraph 2.1.4, the settlement for 25-26 is slightly lower than we expected in our MTFP, but we have been able to use it to balance our budget for 25-26, especially because we received a new grant for extended producer responsibility, which relates to waste collection. Without that, we would have had more of a challenge to balance our budget. Section 2.2 of the report shows the proposed budget and council tax requirement for 25-26. The proposed budget has been balanced by transferring £24,399 from the general reserve. Details of reserves that have been used in the budget are given in Appendix 5. So we have used other reserves other than the general reserve, but in most cases those reserves were set up and established for the purpose that we're using them now. Appendix 6 gives forecast balances at 31st of March 2026 to show the impact of the use of reserves. Table 4 in paragraph 2.2 shows that the district council element of council tax, that is excluding parish precepts, has increased from £7.3 million in 24-25 to £7.75 million in 25-26. And the reasons for the changes are set out in Appendix 3, with significant variances being shown in Table 5 of the report. So that explains why the budget has gone up. Section 2.3 of the report shows the council tax requirement and the proposed increase in Derbyshire Dales element of the council tax. We're proposing an increase of 2.99%. This gives an increase of £7.09 on our Band D council tax, and takes it to £244.07 for 25-26. That increase of 2.99% is within the referendum principles set out by government, or within the capping limits. And it's also similar to the current rate of inflation. CPI is 3% at the moment. The increase in council tax will help us to maintain services, and there are no significant service reductions in the proposed budget. Section 2.4 of the report deals with the medium-term financial plan, which can be seen in Table 9. We talked about that in the earlier report on the MTFS, so I won't go over it in detail now, but you can see that the budget for 25-26 is balanced. Section 2.5 of the report addresses reserves and balances. As I said, forecast reserve balances are shown in Appendix 6. Section 2.6 of the report is the statutory report that I have to do about the robustness of estimates and the adequacy of reserves. I'm satisfied that the estimates are robust and that the proposed financial reserves are adequate at the moment. The review of adequacy of reserves is shown in Appendix 7. The report also shows how I've used SITFA's recently published Financial Resilience Index that demonstrates that our financial reserves are healthy at present. Section 2.8, I think it was, what am I numbering now, shows parish council precepts, and it shows that they've increased by 10.5% in 2025-26, but that the average Band D council tax has increased by 7.2%. The reason for the big difference in percentage increases there is because the council tax base has increased considerably, because we're allowing now for the premiums coming from the second homes charge that members agreed to last year. Section 2.9 of the report relates to the annual pay policy statement, which is shown at Appendix 9 in full. I'm asking members to approve the 8 recommendations in this report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen. Okay, do we have questions from members? Councillor G.
Yeah, Karen, on the premium for second homes that we're expecting to receive a windfall amount, do we have any likely statistics on how good that's going to be? Or, well, I say good, I don't think it's good, but you might think it's good. But at least, if you could tell us if it's up to press.
I'm not quite sure what you mean. I think I need a crystal ball here, but we are monitoring, we have been monitoring for the last year the number of second homes at the beginning of each quarter, and we'll continue to do that as this year goes on. So we monitor the number of second homes, the number of holiday lets, and the number of long-term empty homes, and that will enable us to see whether our policy is having any effect. It can be difficult because the Valuation Office Agency, who are responsible for categorising properties, they've recently done a big exercise on holiday lets. They've issued more strict criteria about what can be a holiday let. When a property meets their criteria for a holiday let, it goes out of council tax and they pay business rates. But for the first 140 days of being a holiday let, and for any that don't meet the criteria, the properties get moved to council tax. So there's quite a bit of back and forth, which does muddy the waters, but we are trying to monitor them.
Hopefully that answers.
Yeah, that more or less answers. Thank you.
Good. Any other questions? Councillor Buckler.
Yeah, we have no say over parish council precepts, do we? The parish councils set their own precepts. You know, look, are there any recommendations for parish councils? Because obviously they have the opportunity to decide what is spent in their communities, which we have nothing to do with. What do we ask of them? Do we have anything to do with it, or do they completely set it themselves? Just looking at where there have been reductions in parish council precepts, referring to some of the stuff that was said earlier on.
Our only role in parish precepts is to ask them to provide us with their precept figures by a certain date so that they can be included in this tax setting process. The government has considered whether to apply referendum principles to parish councils, but once again this time they decided that that wouldn't apply. I suppose they feel that the ballot box is what matters. For the larger council tax precepts, I can't remember the exact figure, we are required to publish more information about those precepts on our website. I think it might be over £100,000. But that's the limit of we don't control what their increases might be.
Thank you. Councillor Flitter.
Yeah, just a query, Chair, on the cost centres on 208. We've got other licensing that's costing this council £37,500. If you look at either side of that issue, you've got licensed premises, Hackney carriage licensing, that pays for itself. What is the 37,000 for when it's termed under licensing? And is that just the cost of legal fees, or is it something else that we should be looking to be cost effective?
I think it's the costs of things like animal boarding licences, possibly gambling licences, and most of those fees are set by the government. The costs that are shown will be mostly for the staff in the environmental health and licensing teams for administering those.
Thank you, Chair. That just brings the question, why aren't we looking to hit the equality of that instead of a great cost to the council? They are in business and should be contributing to those costs. I'll leave that for another day.
Yeah, I think in most cases the fees are set by government and there's not a lot we can do.
That's a good answer. Okay, can I have if there's no further questions, a proposer, please? Councillor Wilson, and a seconder. Councillor Flitter, I think, probably first to it. Okay, thank you. Councillor Wilson, would you like to speak on this?
Just to add, thank you again, Karen, for the report. Obviously, it's all dovetailing with the reports for this evening because they all kind of flow into each other. So thank you very much. And obviously, very conscious that, particularly as this film starts talking about the council tax debate, that obviously we need to get that one done in a timely manner. Thank you.
Councillor Flitter?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, this is this budget. When we're making a budget, I look at the key issues, and the key issues to me this year are to consider what's happening nationally and locally and how it's affecting the people of Derbyshire Dales. And then I look at the cost centres to see if our day-to-day business costs are relative and to the value that people expect them to be. Most importantly, I think that it warrants a 2.99% increase. I think that's a very fair increase, and when you look at some authorities, they are going a lot higher than that. I think we've got a duty to our residents to keep things as low as possible, but also to provide the services that we want to encourage people to take up and enjoy. I've heard a lot about earmark reserves, taking things from one and putting them into another. But you've got to be very careful when you're talking about earmark reserves, because they don't happen overnight. they're built up over a number of years, and we've got a lot of projects that we want to complete, and these earmark reserves are going to help that. And in creation of the new policy and reserve, £500,000 may not be enough for housing and may not be considered enough for some, but it's a start and we can build on that. And then we've got to look round at the contingencies and what we've got in reserve to cater for those contingencies, because we all in our private lives put money aside for those unforeseen issues. So, you know, I'm thankful for Karen and the team for actually doing yet another splendid job, and especially within the group sessions where we've all had a chance to ask questions on this. But the logical, effective and prudent financial planning is based on evidence and need of our communities. And also we need to complete our corporate plan that we've all agreed on. And to me, it doesn't matter whether it's the top priority or the bottom priority, as long as we're getting something done and we're moving forward. To me, I'm not a big fan of the talk about spend while you can, but I am about being prudent, efficient and leaving a legacy for the future. And I think what Karen's come up with on this budget suits that all the way through. So thank you very much, and I'm pleased to have seconded this.
Okay. So members, we're now into debate. Are there any of you who wish to speak on this? Councillor G.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'd definitely go along with Councillor Flitter on that. Just one thing that he mentioned about other councils putting it up higher. I don't think that's allowed, is it? Is 3% the limit? Or?
My understanding is that they can if they have a referendum on it.
Yeah, but generally 3% is the maximum, so 2.99%. I'm not against that because I think we do need something that's equating to inflation, which is probably fairly accurate. So, and it was mentioned about parish councils and their ability to be able to raise money through their precept. So when parish councils have got something that they want in their area, they are allowed to ask the residents if they want to charge them more for it. So to me, that is encouraged if the local people are happy for that particular thing that they want to spend money on to be good. But I don't want them coming to us for money when they could actually ask the locals, because they have got more flexibility in collecting money on the precept. So that is an important factor here. But besides that, yeah, thank you, Karen. It's a good work again. Fabulous. Thank you.
Councillor Hobson.
Thank you, Chair. Agreeing with Councillor Fitter again with about being prudent. I think we do need to be prudent and not just spend money willy-nilly. We don't know what's happening. We need to spend on sensible things. Yes, we're putting up the council tax to this 2.99%. What we have to think of is that there are lots of other calls on people's money from the county council, the police and the fire authority, lots of other things that people have to say. And, you know, we're in a time of quite economic difficulty for a lot of people. So I'm glad that we do have this financial resilience in our council. Thank you.
Okay. If there's nobody else who wishes to speak on this, I would just observe it is interesting that, if you like, the lower tier of councils are trusted to entrust their residents to vote on a higher council tax than we are able to. I think it's an interesting perception of democracy there. But okay, so on this particular one, because it's a budget setting motion, we are required to have a recorded vote, and that's by virtue of the Local Authorities Standing Orders England Regulations 2001. So we're going to ask for that recorded vote, Democratic Services Officer. Yes, and again, thank you again for reminding me we have items 1 to 8, so this is the complete package. Councillor Wilson.
That was literally what I was going to say, was all 8 recommendations, please.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Buttle, you had a question, I think. No? You have an amendment?
Sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Okay, thank you. All right. So we are moving to a vote. This is a recorded vote. So could we have the names of councillors read out, please?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Bates.
For.
Councillor Boynton.
For.
Councillor Bond.
For.
Councillor Buckler.
For.
Councillor Bull.
For.
Councillor Martin Burford.
For.
Councillor Sue Burford.
For.
Councillor Burton.
For.
Councillor Butcher.
For.
Councillor Buttle.
For.
Councillor Chapman.
For.
Councillor Dobbs.
For.
Councillor Edwards Walker. Councillor Flitter.
For.
Councillor Froggett.
For.
Councillor G. Councillor Gretorix.
For.
Councillor Hobson. Councillor Hughes.
For.
Councillor Linthwaite.
For.
Councillor Maelstrom.
For.
Councillor Murphy.
For.
Councillor Shelley.
For.
Councillor Slack.
For.
Councillor Wayne.
For.
And Councillor Wilton.
For.
Thank you. That's unanimous.
Thank you. Thank you, members. So in that case, we move on to item 9. Logically, that follows, which is the council tax setting for the financial year 25-26. That's page 175, I believe, on your papers. So this report enables the council to calculate and set the council tax for 25-26. And again, pursuant to section 100B, brackets 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, by reason of special circumstances, namely to enable the council to calculate and set the council tax for 25-26. This item is being considered at this meeting as a matter of urgency. I understand that's because we didn't publish it within 5 working days.
Yeah, and we were waiting for figures
Yeah.
before we to enable us to do so.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Karen, again, this is one for you to introduce, please.
Thank you. So this is a technical report that follows us setting our own budget and council tax for 25-26, and it brings together the precepts and the bandy council taxes that have been also set by the parish councils and also the Derbyshire County Council, Derbyshire Fire and Rescue Authority, and Derbyshire Police and Crime Commissioner. The Derbyshire Fire and Rescue Authority only had its meeting to set its budget on the 27th of February, last Thursday, and that's why this paper was delayed. So the outcome is an average increase in council tax of 4.87%, as shown in the table in the report, and that includes the county, district, fire, police and the average parish council bill. The empty homes premium that we've been charging for several years will remain for 25-26, and we'll have a new second homes council tax premium that will start on the 1st of April. Both of those premiums are subject to the exceptions approved at the council meeting in January. So some of the recommendations just reiterate the details of the premiums, just to make the so that there's no ambiguity about whether they'll apply or not. So, thank you.
Okay. Do we have questions to Karen on this one? No questions?
Could I propose if there's no
you
questions?
You may, yes, thank you. And do we have a seconder? Councillor Hughes, thank you very much. Okay. Do you wish to speak on this at all?
No, thank you.
Okay. Right. All right. We're into debate on this then. Would any other members like to open this? Stunned silence. Okay. In which case it looks like we may well be moving towards a vote. So on this one, again, we've got 3 recommendations. We also have, draw to your attention, recommendation 1 relates to appendices A to C of the report. So there are some, if you like, some sub-recommendations within recommendation 1. But if there's no objection, we will be taking all of these together in one block again. Recorded vote, yes. So again, this one is a requirement for a recorded vote. So, in which case, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Bates.
4.
Councillor Boynton.
4.
Councillor Bond.
4.
Councillor Buckler.
4.
Councillor Bull.
4.
Councillor Martin Burford.
4.
Councillor Sue Burford.
4.
Councillor Burton.
4.
Councillor Butcher.
4.
Councillor Buttle.
4.
Councillor Chapman.
4.
Councillor Dobbs.
4.
Councillor Edwards Walker. Councillor Flitter. Not here. Councillor Froggatt.
4.
Councillor G.
4.
Councillor Gretorix.
4.
Councillor Hobson.
4.
Councillor Hughes.
4.
Councillor Linthwaite.
4.
Councillor Maelstrom.
4.
Councillor Murphy.
4.
Councillor Shelley.
4.
Councillor Slack.
4.
Councillor Wayne.
4.
And Councillor Wilton.
4.
Thank you.
That's again is carried. Thank you. Could we retrieve Councillor Flitter, please? Thank you. Thank you, members. So we're now on to item 11, which is the capital. Sorry, my apologies. Yes. Oh, yes. Yes, the Treasury Management Strategy. Statement for the financial year. Karen, it's you again.
Thank you. So the SIPA Code of Practice on Treasury Management requires Council to approve a Treasury Management Strategy before the start of each financial year. The Council invests substantial sums of money and it's therefore exposed to financial risks, which could include the loss of invested funds or the revenue effect of changing interest rates. A Treasury Management Strategy is therefore essential to assist in the identification, monitoring and control of risks. And implicit in the strategy is that we look at security before we look at liquidity and before we look at yield. So we make sure that the money is safe and that liquidity means that it's available when we need it, and we consider those before we consider how much interest we get. The strategy that's proposed tonight isn't a great deal different to the strategy that we had for 24-25. We've recommended that some of the limits and thresholds be increased, and so the recommendation is that the Treasury Management Strategy Statement and Prudential Indicators for 25-26 be approved.
Thank you, Karen. So we've got a question from Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. Some other councils have got into trouble using the Public Works Loan Board lending facility, and that's also thought to be one of the least risky sources of finance for local authorities, yet they do get into trouble. Karen, do you have any advice for those other councils about, because we don't seem to have that problem?
I'd probably say that they should be doing their due diligence and making sure that their financial plans are robust.
Sound advice? Councillor Butcher.
Yes, just to follow on from that, so what is the advice to this council in terms of actions it might take in future? I know there have been discussions about borrowing from itself, for instance. Is there anything that comes on that? You may say to refer later, I don't know.
I think those things are the subject of the following report on the capital investment strategy. So we could put that up then.
Councillor Wilson.
Could I propose it, please?
Of course, yeah. And do we have a seconder? Councillor Hughes, by the looks of it. Would you like to speak on this at all?
No, thank you. Thank you once again, Karen, for her work. As I say, all of these reports are dovetailing into each other as part of the overall budget plan. We've been through a lot of it already, and this just lays out the framework by which Karen does a lot of the work. So it's great. Thank you.
Councillor Hughes.
Yes, I'd like to just say thank you for Karen for managing the Treasury Fund so effectively. It's not an easy job, and I think we're in the position we are in because of that effective management.
So members, we're now into debate, if you wish to do that. Do I see any hands in favour of that? No. Looks like we're going straight to a vote then in that case. So this one... Okay, it's just the one, thank you. Single recommendation for this. Can I have a show of hands then, please? All those in favour? And any against? Any abstentions? No, that's wrong. Thank you. So we really are now on to item 11, which is the capital and investment strategy for the financial year 25-26. By my reckoning, that's page 211 on your papers. Karen.
Thank you, Chair. Final report from me this evening. This report seeks approval for the Council's capital strategy, minimum revenue provision policy and corporate investment strategy for 25-26. Again, this isn't very different from the strategy for the current financial year, but we are required to approve these for each coming financial year. So the purpose of the capital strategy is to provide a high-level overview of how proposed capital expenditure and capital financing are aligned, and to identify their implications for future financial sustainability. So this one ensures that we should have adequate funding for our capital programme, and particularly our future capital needs. The Council must comply with the Prudential Code. The Prudential Code stipulates it's not prudent for local authorities to make any investment or spending decision that may lead to new borrowing unless it's directly and primarily related to the functions of the authority. This means that a local authority cannot borrow purely for commercial investment. So this comes back to the question that came up earlier this evening. The Prudential Code has been tightened now to mean that a local authority couldn't, for example, buy a hotel in another part of the country just as a commercial investment, and that's the type of poor investment that other authorities made in the past. If the Council intends to borrow from the Public Works Loans Board, then I'm required to verify that the authority's capital spending plans do not include the acquisition of assets primarily for yield. So we can borrow if we feel that's appropriate, but it has to be on something that's service related or that will benefit our community. We haven't ever borrowed where assets are primarily for yield, and clearly we don't plan to. Capital expenditure includes spending on investments, so the corporate investment strategy for 25-26 is shown at Appendix 1 to the report, and as I've said, there are no significant changes from the current year's strategy. The financing of the proposed capital programme that members approved earlier this evening is shown at Appendix 2, and you can see the impact on our capital reserves. The Council has borrowing for previous capital expenditure. We have an outstanding loan from PWLB, and amounts are set aside in the revenue account to repay this debt, and that's called the minimum revenue provision. We're legally obliged to set aside that amount from our revenue budget. And the MRP statement is shown at Appendix 3 to the report. The borrowing strategy is set out in paragraphs 2.18 to 224 of the report, and we seek a balance between short-term loans and long-term fixed-rate loans. we will look at the balance between the cost and the liquidity and the yield, as I mentioned earlier. The current capital programme doesn't indicate that new borrowings required at the moment. We can fully finance that from reserves, but we're monitoring that closely. If members decide that they want to expand housing, for example, we might need to borrow, and we would bring a report to council on the impact of that. We know that the balances on reserves set aside to fund the capital programme are reducing, but at the moment they appear to meet most of our current day requirements. The council's legally obliged to set an affordable borrowing limit for each year, and this is shown in paragraph 223 of the report. And for effective financial management, the authority needs to be sure that any loans that we take out are sustainable and affordable to the revenue account. Obviously we need to be able to afford to repay any loans, and that's demonstrated in paragraph 2.39 of the report. So I'm asking members to approve the recommendation within this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen, again for guiding us through that document very clearly. Final set of questions tonight for Karen, I think, then. Councillor Bull.
Just one. Obviously, we're being very prudent with all of this. If this council does come and is dissolved or the likes, what happens to the loan that we have actually got, and how do we come to pay that off?
I understand that if the authority is transferred to become part of a bigger authority, then all their assets and liabilities would be transferred over to that new authority.
Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Roger. Commercial investments property, on table 8 there's a rate of return associated with that. I was just wondering on what basis the value of the property is determined. Is that updated, or is that kept as a purchase price?
The value of the properties are updated. We review the values of properties at the 31st of March every year for our balance sheet purposes.
So in that case it's based on that 31st of March figure, is it?
It's based, well, as it says, the March 24 figure is an actual valuation, and the other two are what we forecast they might be.
All right, but I mean in terms of a return on investment, so that's the income over the capital employed. So the capital value that is used to calculate the internal rate, the investment return.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's based on the year in question then.
Yes, so it looks at the amount that we get from the properties, so the rents in this case,
yeah,
and divides them by the actual value of those to get a rate of return.
The real value rather than the nominal value then. So it's the value today or on 31st of March.
It's the value that's used for our accounts, so that's assessed by an external valuer.
Okay, so is the 6.4% a constant that is used to determine the capital value of the property, or is that?
I'd have to check that, but I presume that the forecasts have been put in based on the hope that we maintain that level of investment.
Okay, so
but I can't recall what it was the year before.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Bottle.
Thank you, Roger. Now, I think I'm pretty much coming from where Sue was coming from a moment ago about Arc Leisure and the fact that we probably owe, and the ABC, and we owe about 5 million quid on our investments in those. And I have some doubts about any future combined authority, or whatever they call it, unitary authority, being able to manage those debts responsibly. I suspect they're going to be drowned in social care costs and children's services and things like that. So I'm wondering if we can kind of give that loan to Freedom Leisure and say, you take this money, you take the loan, you take the income, away you go, and then the new authority won't be able to destroy our investment in our residents' services.
Karen, I think that's one for you.
I think we would need to bring a report if we were to look at that, but I'm not sure Freedom Leisure would want to take on a loan debt of £5.5 million.
I imagine so, but we need to start thinking about how we're going to protect our services into the future.
Okay. In which case, do we have a proposer for this? Councillor Hughes.
Chair, I'd like to propose it.
Yeah, okay. And a seconder? Councillor Flitter, thank you. Would either of you like to speak on this?
No, I'm all right, thank you.
Okay. We're now into debate, members. I see nobody wishing to debate, in which case we move straight to the vote. Could we have all those in favour, please, show? One recommendation. And any against? No. Any abstentions? Thank you, in which case that is also carried. We now move straight to item 12, which is to exclude the public and press. This is because item 12 is to receive the exempt record of the proceedings of the extraordinary council meeting held on the 23rd of January 2025. You've already approved the non-exempt part of that. Members are asked to approve the accuracy of the exempt minutes. Okay. Right, we have a form of words here, which is to resolve to exclude the public according to paragraph 3 and paragraph 5 of part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. So could we have a proposer to exclude the public? Councillor Dobbs, and a seconder. Councillor Buckler, thank you very much. Councillor Hobson.
I wanted to ask a question.
Yes.
You've been quite deliberate in what you've said this time. I've done some research last time. The Act requires a resolution to exclude the public, specifying which exempt category applies. Last time it just said exempt information being disclosed. And do you not feel that's just too vague? That was what was said last time. It didn't go through all the various information.
I'd have to check last time, but we're talking something. I'd have to double check, but we're talking about the exclusion now.
Yeah, but in relation to the previous meeting, the fact that was the exemption proportionate is what I'm asking really.
It would be the same exemption. I mean, I can go through and check what we said last time, but I suspect that they were doing the same again now. But in any event, we're talking about the exclusion of the press and public now, asking members to pass a resolution so that members can receive the exempt minute, and that's all we're doing at this stage now.
Thank you, Ms Badewell. Obviously, I do not wish this to be discussed in private. Councillor G's already talked about the importance of local representation. We had this meeting behind closed doors, and now we're dealing with the minutes behind closed doors. I think our public need to know how we're voting, what we're voting for, and I think it's a very disappointing stance by this council.
Councillor Dobbs.
Can I come back and sum up? Because I did do the voting. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor G.
Yeah, I'll go along with Councillor Hobson. I can't support this being excluded from the people of Derbyshire Dales and Matlock. It should never have been in the first place when you had the meeting on the 23rd of January. You need to trust your residents. This council has portrayed itself for transparency and consulting with the public. So keeping things secret in this way, it doesn't serve anybody any good. As things get out, I think it's already been said that things have got out. I mean, I don't go on social media, so I haven't seen it, but I've heard rumours that it has. And it's the wrong way to do business, so I can't support this being put in private. It should be open to the public. People are sensible. If there's a good reason for making a decision, let the public see it.
Councillor Dobbs, would you like to respond to that?
Just to sum up, I mean, surely everyone, the logic of it is the public were excluded for reasons that were carefully explained at the time. These are the minutes from that, and therefore the logic says they have to be in private, because it doesn't make any sense. You can't undo what a council has done before, and I think you, Councillor Hobson, will be the first one to admit to that. So I do recommend this. This is just pure logic of what happened last time. So I do commend this motion to exclude public and press at this point.
Okay. Councillor G?
Could I come back on that? I'm sorry. No, you're just replaying the mistake you made the first time. So you're trying to keep all this situation away from the public in Matlock, and it's wrong.
Okay. I've tolerated a second intervention there. But I think we are now at the point where we wish to move to the vote. So could I see all those in favour, please, raising their hand? You got that? Okay. And all those against excluding the public and press for the reasons given, please show. And sorry.
I think there were 10. I don't think it counted. Councillor Chapman.
Those against again.
Could we show again, please, against? Sorry about this.
There's one there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah, Councillor Bull didn't vote then.
All right, okay. We'll come on to abstentions now, please.
Abstentions.
3.
1, 2, 3.
Chair,
Yes.
would it be appropriate at this time in the meeting to ask maybe Mr Wilson to explain for those who are listening as to why...
Nobody's listening to this.
Well, we're listening, they're listening, why this really difficult decision was made in the first place to have that meeting in private. I think that they over there need to listen again as to why that decision was taken. Because it wasn't an easy decision, and I think they need to hear it again why we did it.
Barbara, would you like to interject?
Thank you, Chair. The resolution now on the paper is purely for members to approve or otherwise the resolution on the paper, so that the members can receive the minutes. And that's all that we're concerned about at this stage tonight. And we've got 14 for, 9 against and 3 abstentions, so the resolution is approved, and therefore can we turn the webcast off, please?
Thank you.